You won't believe what it took for one defiant act of quiet courage to change a whole neighborhood and to teach a lasting lesson in boundaries and respect. It sometimes just takes one line etched in steel to change everything. Press play to find out. Have you ever asked yourself what it takes to finally confront the person who believes they are above the rules? In a suburban neighborhood where neatly manicured lawns conceal seething competition, one man learned that sometimes you have to draw the line no one will cross in order to defend what you love. What do you do when respect turns to entitlement, and how far would you go to win back your peace? This is the tale of a workshop, a white Lexus, and the lesson that some boundaries are made of steel. Let me take you back to where it all began. The instant I drove into my driveway following lunch, I knew that something wasn't quite right. My broad double doors of my workshop were open wide, and there, parked squarely in between my metalworking stations, was a brand new white Lexus SUV. Its vanity plate was HOA1. I did not require more than a look to recognize whose car it was. Patricia Holloway. She had crossed a boundary before, but now she had crossed the line. I strolled over to my toolbox, disregarding the self-satisfied smirk I could almost sense emanating from her kitchen window behind me. My fingers located my welding mask and torch with smooth familiarity. There would be no further warnings, no courteous dialogue. This was the moment Patricia was going to learn what happens when you push a metalworker to his breaking point. With a faint hiss, the acetylene flame ignited. Before Patricia had time to see what I was doing, I had already closed the first door with a smooth, shining glob of molten steel. Her scream could be heard down the block, but I just adjusted my mask and approached the second door. 20 minutes later, my workshop was a fortress. Her $60,000 vehicle entombed inside, like some unintended modern art installation. I set down my tools, tossed my gear into the truck, and headed for the airport. My vacation to Costa Rica couldn't have come at a better time. But before I take you further, let me step back and explain how all of this began. My name is David Brennan, and I've spent 15 years working as a professional metalworker. I saved up for 2 years before I was finally able to construct my ideal workshop at the back of my house in Pine Ridge Estates. It was my haven, a place where I could design bespoke pieces for clients and get lost in the art of manipulating steel. The building was all in compliance, duly permitted, and built to look just like the rest of the neighborhood. The cedar siding and architectural elements were exactly what complemented my house. Enter Patricia Holloway. She had just been voted in as HOA chair after a campaign that rested on a pledge to restore balance and increase property values. Patricia was the type of individual who measured the height of grass with a ruler and served violation notices to mailboxes that were one shade outside the approved color range. In a week of being in office, she determined that my workshop was an eyesore that had to be removed. The harassment started in subtle, calculated increments. Official seeming notices began appearing on my door that said the building was in violation of covenants that didn't even exist. When I produced copies of my permits and the HOA approval I'd obtained 2 years prior, she changed tack. Suddenly, she was complaining about noise, even though I worked only during approved hours and had spent money on sound-dampening materials when I constructed the shop. Then, the parking infractions started. Patricia started leaving her Lexus parked right in front of my workshop doors, saying she was there to investigate possible infractions. The first time I asked her respectfully to pull away. The second time I called the HOA board. They made some vague stuttering about her having jurisdiction to police complaints. By the fifth, I had gotten security cameras and was recording everything. From there, things went downhill fast. Patricia began circulating rumors during HOA meetings, alleging that I was conducting an illegal business, causing fire risks and lowering property values. She made a string of false reports to the city, each of which required me to take time with my clients so I could see inspectors who, each time, found absolutely nothing wrong. And that wasn't the end of it. Patricia enlisted her friend Sandra Morrison to assist her. They both made false noise complaints and set out to complicate my life as much as possible. It reached its breaking point on a Tuesday morning. I came to work at my workshop to find the doors blocked, not just but wide open, and Patricia's Lexus inside. In some way, she had acquired my spare key, probably through the property management firm where her sister was employed. A laminated sign rested on the dashboard, announcing that the space was being taken back as common property, subject to an HOA determination. I photographed it from all sides, making sure to catch her license plate and the sign in plain sight. Then I phoned my lawyer, who corroborated what I already suspected. The workshop sat on my land, constructed with all the proper permits in effect. Patricia's behavior constituted criminal trespassing and breaking and entering, but he cautioned me as well that filing charges would be a long, costly procedure, and that ultimately, Patricia would probably receive little more than a slap on the wrist. That was when I made the decision to go about it another way. If Patricia wished to pretend my workshop was communal, I would claim it as my own and lock it down, good and tight. I spent the next hour welding all points of entry securely shut with meticulous care. The double main doors, the side door, even the windows, each one sealed with neat, unbreakable welds any metalworker would be proud to call his own. I took care to leave tiny spaces for air circulation. I wasn't attempting to kill anyone. I was just a man who'd reached the breaking point. Her darling Lexus would never leave without major demolition done on it. Before departing for the airport, I did 3 things. First, I uploaded the security video to the local Facebook group with a brief caption stating that I had locked my workshop down to intruders and would be out of town for 2 weeks. Second, I mailed a certified letter to the HOA board, officially alerting them that their chairperson had committed breaking and entering. Third, I turned on my automatic sprinkler system, knowing full well that the spray would blow through the ventilation slots I'd left in the welds. Then I departed. The trip to Costa Rica was all I could have wished for. Sparkling beaches, perfect weather, and spotty internet access that, I promise you, I did not use to view the neighborhood Facebook page blow up with comments, photos, and more desperate posts from Patricia. In accordance with my neighbor, Tom Garrison, who kept me informed with frequent messages, the show at my house soon became Pine Ridge Estate's hot topic. Patricia's initial aplomb melted within a few hours. She phoned the police, who came and found her elaborating at length about how she had broken into my workshop to park there unauthorized. The officers told her that I had a right to protect my property and that she was lucky I hadn't filed trespassing charges. They told her they couldn't make me come in from vacation to release her car, and certainly weren't going to break my property to get it out. The HOA board held an emergency meeting at which Patricia insisted that the association reimburse her for industrial cutting gear to release her vehicle. Board member Robert Dalton reminded them that Patricia acted without board permission and had potentially put the HOA in grave legal jeopardy. The motion to aid her fell 5-1, with Sandra the lone supporter of Patricia. By the 3rd day, local news had picked up on the story. HOA chair trapped in irony was the week's feel-good front page, with reporters talking to chuckling neighbors and legal analysts, all of whom assured me that I had done nothing wrong. Patricia retained a lawyer who started sending me cease and desist notices, letters my own attorney addressed with glee, appending counter notices listing her criminal trespassing. Tom's posts became increasingly amusing by the day. Patricia had attempted to employ metal cutters to free her automobile, but in some way everybody within the locality had suddenly been too busy once word began circulating within our professional circles. She even tried breaking the windows of her own car in an attempt to at least be able to get her personal effects back. But she quickly learned that crawling out of a vehicle within an enclosed building did not fix the root issue. On the net, the social media updates went from anger to outright ridicule. A neighbor began a countdown clock counting the days until my return. Another had made a bingo card charting Patricia's daily breakdowns with squares that read, "Calls police again, threatens lawsuit, and screams at workshop." The teens in the neighborhood had begun referring to it as the Lexus Memorial Art Gallery. They took selfies in front of my taped-up workshop, smiling as they captured the drama. I spent 2 idyllic weeks in island paradise while they did. I stayed abreast of welding publications, tried new cocktails, and drew design ideas for future commissions. The spa day itself was especially therapeutic, knowing that back home, Patricia's $60,000 status item was quietly gathering dust and moisture in the room she'd long proclaimed as communal space. My flight back home landed on a Saturday afternoon, ideally timed to coincide with the neighborhood barbecue I'd promoted before departing. Tom had done his part to publicize, and by the time I drove home, half of Pine Ridge Estates was present. Lawn chairs, coolers, and barely contained amusement occupied my front lawn. Patricia hovered on the periphery of the gathering. Her normally spotless appearance was woefully unkempt, dark smudges under her eyes a testament to sleepless nights. I offered a warm wave to the gathered neighbors and made a point of examining the workshop exterior, quietly appreciating the crisp lines of my welds as Patricia seethed with fury. With a theatrical touch, I lit up the cutting torch and started the slow, painstaking process of opening up my workshop. The gathering stood in silence as I worked carefully, snipping through each weld with precision, making sure that the seams would be easily reset later. Once the final cut was made, I yanked the doors open to show Patricia's Lexus, now shrouded in a delicate layer of dust and condensation. The windows on the inside were steamed up, and on the driver's side, I could easily see the wreckage she'd inflicted in her desperate bid to flee. Tropical air freshener that I'd had hanging from the rearview mirror prior to closing every window solidly still hung there, wafting through the air with a trace amount of coconut. Patricia hurried towards the car, her face cycling through red tones I'd previously only been able to achieve with special metal patinas. She struggled with her keys, turned the motor over, and started to back out, only to find that the battery had almost died. It seemed she'd left the interior lights on during her first break-in. The engine coughed and died halfway out of the workshop. What started as some guffawing from the onlookers quickly escalated into belly laughing. Mortified with embarrassment, Patricia found herself having to blushingly request jumper cables from Tom. Even Sandra couldn't suppress a smirk as we all stood by and watched the erstwhile feared HOA chair struggle her way through simple vehicle recovery. When the Lexus finally crawled out of my garage, Patricia couldn't even manage to look any of us in the eye. Then Monday morning, and the final scene of this prolonged farce. The HOA board held a special meeting. Patricia was summoned before them for a formal vote of no confidence. Her actions were read off by the board president: abuse of authority, criminal trespassing, and putting the association at risk for possible legal liability. The vote was unanimous. Even Sandra, who had gone along with most of Patricia's mischief, abstained instead of voting in favor of her friend. Patricia resigned within the hour. By Wednesday, a for sale sign was planted in her front yard. In accordance with court documents, the bills from her unsuccessful effort to sue me amounted to $18,000. The cost of repairing her Lexus, new battery, new window, and full interior detailing to take out the water damage, added yet another $3,000 to her bill. That night, in my workshop, I put up the finishing touch: a hand-forged steel sign that read, "Private Studio. Unauthorized parking will be professionally secured." The new HOA board had no problem sanctioning it. As I welded it together, I caught a glimpse in Patricia's direction. She was by the window, filling boxes with the slumped shoulders of someone who'd learned the hard way about respecting other people's limits. 3 weeks passed, and she was gone. The closing was taken care of by her realtor. Patricia was too ashamed to make an appearance in a neighborhood where she'd become a cautionary example. The new owners were a young family who liked having a metalworker as a next-door neighbor. They actually had a specially made gate for their garden commissioned before they even moved in. Life has been quiet in the neighborhood ever since. The new HOA board has been all about actual community betterments and not trivial power grabs. My workshop is still my haven, now with steel-reinforced doors that lock safely from within and security cameras watching every corner. And somewhere in a different suburb, Patricia Holloway is hopefully reconsidering before she pulls over anywhere she doesn't rightly belong. The $18,000 in attorney fees she paid attempting to sue me? It almost paid for my trip to Costa Rica. Almost.